Investment advisory services offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, and SWAN-Capital are independent entities.
What your money would say. Andrew McNair. Money Talks. Are you listening? Money Talks. Are you listening? Money Talks. Are you listening? What your money would say with Andrew McNair.
We're live here on What Your Money Would Say. I'm your host, Andrew McNair. And for the next 30 minutes, every Saturday from 12:30 to 1 o'clock, we'll be taking financial chickens and making them financial swans. But what does a financial swan even mean? It means as a retiree, you can finally sleep well at night. And I know that's you'd love to get to that point where, you've put 3 kids through college, you've saved money in your 401k plan, and you've even able to give to your local church and your charity. But it's time for you to finally sleep well at night. And one of the worries that many retirees, many clients that come in my office worry about is retirement income. They're worried about having too much life at the end of their money and the opposite, than running out of money. And there's ways to actually get rid of that anxiety of running out of money. And we're going to talk about some of those solutions. But before we do that, I want to share with you a few upcoming events that you need to know about in the Pensacola and Baldwin County community. That's going to be our Veteran Aid and Attendance Workshop. We're going to share with families how to receive up to $2,085 a month tax-free to help offset assisted living costs, home health care costs, and even nursing home care expenses. Because we all know if you have an elder parent, some of those assisted livings can cost up to $4,000 a month, or nursing home can cost up to $6,900 a month. So how does someone pay for that? Well, come to one of our workshops this month in February to find out more information about that aid and attendance benefit. I got 2 locations and times for you. The first one is going to be at the Sterling House, which is at University Parkway in Pensacola, and the time is going to be February 24th at 6 o'clock. So that's February 24th at 6 o'clock, or the Blake at Gulf Breeze. So if you're living out in Gulf Breeze and you don't want to drive over the bridge, we have a location for you. The Blake at Gulf Breeze, and that's going to be the 17th. So you don't want to miss those 2 workshops to learn how to receive up to $25,000 a year from the VA. Now, today's topic is no income, no retirement, because without income, there is no retirement. And many families come to me with only a Social Security check and hoping and praying to retire. Social Security was not intended to be your sole income source. If you go back to when FDR signed that law into an order, he said that it only was supposed to be a supplement. Now, it's more than a supplement. For a lot of families, it's sometimes their sole income. So what do? Well, we're going to talk about a private pension plan that SWAN-Capital specializes in. But before we do that, we're going to take a short commercial break before we jump into the private pension plan.
Today's financial landscape can be rough. One of the most important aspects of planning is choosing the right guide to help you navigate the road to retirement. Andrew McNair and the team at SWAN-Capital is dedicated to providing the very best service in the retirement planning industry today. SWAN-Capital is a full-service independent wealth management firm dedicated to providing guaranteed custom income plans that you cannot outlive. Contact Andrew McNair at SWAN-Capital 850-380-9558. That's 850-380-9558. The difference between SWAN-Capital and you retire once. We help people retire every day. You should be enjoying your retirement years, not letting worry keep you up at night. SWAN-Capital. Sleep well at night. Contact Andrew McNair at SWAN-Capital 850-380-9558. That's 850-380-9558. Again, that's 850-380-9558.
The Veteran Benefit Project, founded by Andrew McNair, president of SWAN-Capital, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping veterans and widows of veterans with long-term care expenses by qualifying for the VA's Aid and Attendance Benefit. Learn how to receive over $24,000 per year from the VA towards long-term health care. There is absolutely no fee associated with our assistance to the veteran, the widow of a veteran, their families, or any retirement community. Our goal is to preserve the dignity of the veteran and to reduce the dependency on the Medicaid system. Again, learn how to receive over $24,000 per year from the VA. Contact the Veteran Benefit Project 850-380-5137. That's 850-380-5137. 850-380-5137. Look us up on the web, myveteranbenefit.com. At the Veteran Benefit Project, we are committed to helping you secure the benefits you deserve.
Welcome back to What Your Money Would Say. I'm your host, Andrew McNair, and today's show is No Income, No Retirement, because without income, there is no retirement. And we stopped talking, right about where I stopped was about private pension plans. And as a retiree, many people have saved up in a TSP, a 401k, an IRA, but they don't know how to turn that asset into an income stream that they never outlive. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is that private pension plan that we specialize in. It's a plan where you can invest a portion of your retirement and get 8% up front, day one, and get a guaranteed 7% every year for retirement. And all those earnings are tax deferred at no market risk. It may sound too good to be true, but I assure you it's not. So give SWAN-Capital a call at 380-9558. That's 380-9558. And please, when you call the office, don't ask for information. Ask for the retirement checkup. That's free. We're not looking for customers. We're looking for clients. So sign up for that free retirement checkup. So I understand that you have retirement fears about running out of money. It makes a lot of sense. For the last 12 plus years in the stock market, we've seen so much volatility. And I want to give you a really interesting case scenario. If you would have retired in 2000, which many people did retire in the year 2000, and you would have invested $100,000 and just took out 5%, which many of my colleagues would say that that's a pretty good standard. You probably won't run out of money at, let's just take out 5% every year. Not increasing it with inflation, but if you took out 5% in 2011, you would only have $25,000 left of your $100,000. So literally 75% of your asset was ate up. And that's because when you're taking out income in the low years of the stock market, your account value gets hit and it never recovers. So what are your options? We're going to talk about some of the solutions that retirees look for to produce income. And we're going to see the pros and the cons of each. Let's start off with the first one. This is the safest alternative for a retiree, and that is CDs. Many families come into my office and they were investing in CDs back in the 80s and the 90s. They were investing hundreds of thousands of dollars of their retirement in CDs that were earning 5%. You remember those good old days where you got a guaranteed 5% from the bank for your 5-year CD? Well, unless you lived in a cave for the last 20 years, you've seen interest rates continually drop. Today we're at historic lows. So CD rates are closer to 1% if you're lucky. And if you're living off 1% on your investments, you're eating cat food for lunch, because 1% on your investment nest egg is not enough to not only keep up with inflation, but just to survive. So CDs used to be a great alternative because they were liquid or semi-liquid and were safe and principally protected. The problem is interest rates have just drove down those investments where they're just not a healthy alternative anymore. But I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know. Now here's what's interesting. Investors over the last 5+ years have been pouring their money into bonds, seeking higher returns. The problem, though, is bonds are not safe. They're not principal protected. And if you're putting your nest egg in bonds, and I know you've been sold potentially the story that they're safe, but they're not safe investments. They still have plenty of risk inside of them. You're investing in companies. You're giving them a loan. Those companies sometimes do not pay its bills, and thus those bonds could lose their value. Also, you have to look at the taxes. I come across a lot of families that have bonds but are taking out too much income, which can be very inefficient tax-wise. Also, again, you're mercy of the market when you're investing in bonds. And I encourage families to go to SWAN-Capital.com and download our free white paper on the bond market. It'll really open your eyes to the potential bond bubble that could exist for investors that are investing in bonds. So download our free white paper on bonds at SWAN-Capital.com. Now, the third investment tool that families invest in that are looking for retirement income is dividend-paying stock. You know, you find a blue chip stock in like Gulf Power, Bank of America, and you place your assets in there and you live off the dividends on that stock. The only problem is if you had invested in Bank of America in 2005 with a strong dividend, you would be really hurting in 2008 and 2009 because banks and companies in general can go out of business. So don't let your nest egg be at the mercy of the market. If you look at the Dow Jones, which is a combination of a lot of very large companies, if you look at that Dow Jones in 1950 and compare it to 2014, a lot of those companies are out of business. Again, if you had invested in those companies, there went your nest egg. So when it comes to retirement income, you can't take a craps approach to your retirement income. You can't just roll the dice and just hope it ends up well when you're at the retirement red zone. That's what I want to share with you, the private pension plan that SWAN-Capital specializes in. What if we took all those alternatives, dividend-paying stocks, bonds, CDs, where retirees go for income, and we compare it to the private pension plan that SWAN-Capital, my wealth management firm, specializes in? What you would see is that private pension plan, if you're 55 years old today and you invested $100,000 in the private pension plan, you would get a guaranteed 8% up front. So you would start off with $108,000 and you'd get a guaranteed 7% every year for income. So that when you're age 65, you don't have just $100,000, you have $200,000+. And you can take out over 5% every year for the rest of your life. You'd get a pension check that you can never outlive. And I know many families are saying, well, that just sounds too good to be true. With no market risk? Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So give SWAN-Capital a call at 380-9558. That's 380-9558. And we'll share with you all about how that private pension plan would work for you and your family. Another thing that you have to take into consideration that I didn't talk about was, what about if your health changes in retirement? Let's say you're taking money out of CDs, dividend-paying stocks, or bonds. You're taking out $1,000 a month, but you need $2,000 more because you or your wife went into an assisted living or needed home health care because you're getting up there in age. What do? Where does that income come from? You can't go back to work in retirement. Well, with that private pension plan, they allow you to double your income for 5 years. That's right. If you have a $1,000 monthly check, they'll double it to $2,000 for 5 years. And then it'll go back to the original amount. So again, call SWAN-Capital for more information about that. If you're thinking, well, Andrew, I'm about to retire in the next year or two, but I'm trying to make sure I have enough retirement income. How do you go about making sure that you have enough? What we do is we go through a gap analysis, is what I call it. It's where we take all of your income in retirement, your Social Security, your pension check, maybe a retired military pension check, and then we compare it to your expenses. And the key, a little secret tip for you, is that you don't want to take a lower number than you're already paying for expenses today. So just because you're spending $5,000 a month in expenses today, when you retire, everything doesn't go on sale when you retire. Just when you retire on Friday, on Monday, not everything is half price. Typically plan for as much expenses as you have today, because in retirement, things get more expenses. You're going to be taking hopefully more trips. Health care, you're going to be taking more visits to the doctor. So what they do is they take all your income and we compare it to your expenses in retirement. And the shortfall, let's say you have $3,000 versus $4,000 of expenses. That $1,000 shortfall is what we got to correct. That's the $1,000 question that we have to solve. Where does that $1,000 a month come from for the rest of your life? And that is the key to retirement planning. And we talked about some options. We talked about CDs, but we talked about bonds. We talked about dividend-paying stocks. But in just a few minutes, I want to re-highlight the pension plan that SWAN-Capital specializes in. So we'll be right back in just a few minutes.
Today's financial landscape can be rough. One of the most important aspects of planning is choosing the right guide to help you navigate the road to retirement. Andrew McNair and the team at SWAN-Capital is dedicated to providing the very best service in the retirement planning industry today. SWAN-Capital is a full-service independent wealth management firm dedicated to providing guaranteed custom income plans that you cannot outlive. Contact Andrew McNair at SWAN-Capital 850-380-9558. That's 850-380-9558. The difference between SWAN-Capital and you retire once. We help people retire every day. You should be enjoying your retirement years, not letting worry keep you up at night. SWAN-Capital. Sleep well at night. Contact Andrew McNair at SWAN-Capital 850-380-9558. That's 850-380-9558. Again, that's 850-380-9558.
The Veteran Benefit Project, founded by Andrew McNair, president of SWAN-Capital, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping veterans and widows of veterans with long-term care expenses by qualifying for the VA's Aid and Attendance Benefit. Learn how to receive over $24,000 per year from the VA towards long-term health care. There is absolutely no fee associated with our assistance to the veteran, the widow of a veteran, their families, or any retirement community. Our goal is to preserve the dignity of the veteran and to reduce the dependency on the Medicaid system. Again, learn how to receive over $24,000 per year from the VA. Contact the Veteran Benefit Project 850-380-5137. That's 850-380-5137. 850-380-5137. Look us up on the web, myveteranbenefit.com. At the Veteran Benefit Project, we are committed to helping you secure the benefits you deserve.
Welcome back to What Your Money Would Say. I'm your host, Andrew McNair. And today's show is No Income, No Retirement. Because without income, there is no retirement. So how do you come up with a retirement income that you can never outlive? We're going to talk about some of the sources that retirees seek to get that retirement income. And retirement planning is a very hard feat because we don't know how long we're going to live. It's one of those races where we don't know where the finish line truly is. So it makes planning not only a science, but an art. And I understand why retirement planning is one of the largest fears of retirees, because no one wants to run out of money in their 70s and their 80s and be a Walmart greeter. That's no one's plan. However, so many families have to go back to work when they least expected to and they least wanted to. And what I found was a lot of families did that in 2008. And it's sad because they had their nest egg, what was supposed to last them for the next 20 or 30 years, and then it was cut in half. And then they moved to safety and locked in those losses. And they had to make that 401k, which turned into a 201k, last that much longer. But if you haven't suffered through some of those growing pains that others have, you're in luck. That doesn't have to be your reality. Right now, the stock market is at some record highs. We've seen some volatility over the last few weeks, but it's a time where you can finally say, you know what, I'm at the retirement red zone. I'm at the 5-year yard line, and it makes no sense anymore to start to throw Hail Marys trying to get only 5 yards. Instead, how do I have a safer alternative of just running it up the middle and making sure I end up in the retirement end zone? Well, we're going to talk about some of the solutions that Wall Street or the banks would have you do, but then we'll talk about some of the alternatives alternative investments that SWAN-Capital specializes in. The first investment that we talked about earlier was CDs. So many people are looking for CDs, and we call them at our office GBS accounts. They want safety from these CDs, but GBS account stands for Going Broke Safely. So you feel good about your investment in a CD because it's safe. It's protected by FDIC, which is protected by the government. And you always know the old fun tagline that the government's here to help. So for what it's worth, it's protected by the government. And as CDs were great investment tools for income in the 80s and 90s because they were paying over 5%. Some of you remember when they were paying 10+%. But those days are long gone. Those days where we can just try to get 1 to 2% may be there to stay. So CDs are not our investment income tool anymore. So we look towards bonds. And we do ETFs that focus on bonds at SWAN-Capital, but we don't put a lot of assets there. And here's why: if bonds are at historically great, they're doing fine. They did okay last year, but if interest rates are at historic lows and bond prices have inverse relationships to interest rates, what kind of risk are you putting your money at? Because if interest rates continue to rise, and we've pushed them artificially low for so long, they can go back up like a spring. You put your money at risk if you're invested in bonds. Bonds are not principally protected. They do give a way better return than CDs. That's why we do like bonds, but we don't like that bonds have no principal protection, which is so important when you get to the retirement red zone. The next alternative is dividend-paying stock. You could invest your money in a blue chip stock potentially and get a great return. However, the underlying stock price is not guaranteed. It may be $5 today, but it may be $2 tomorrow if another 2008 happened. See, you don't want your retirement nest egg to be at the mercy of the market, especially if you're relying on that for retirement income. But that happened to so many families in 2008. In 2008, families did retire. And when they needed money, they had to pull out of their account when it was 50% down. Those assets never did recover because they were selling them to pay for their retirement expenses. So what alternatives do you have? Well, at SWAN-Capital, we specialize in a private pension plan. It's a plan where you can invest a portion of your savings, let's say $100,000 for great illustration purposes, and you put $100,000 in, you get 8% day one. So you start off with $108,000, and then they'll guarantee 7% every year through the life that of the plan that we put together for you. And until you retire, you get a guaranteed 7%. So that when you retire, let's say at the age of 65 or 75, you've got a guaranteed 7%. So if you put $100,000 at age 65, you would have $200,000. And you can take out over 5% every year for the rest of your life, just like your Social Security, just like your pension plan, and that's income that you and your spouse can rely on. So for someone that's age 55 and retires at age 65, they put $100,000 in, and they can take out $980 a month for the rest of their life. And if you do that for the 20, 30 years, you'll see that they spent well over the $100,000 they invested. And what's nice is this private pension plan is insured to pay you for the rest of your life. If you want to find out more information, you're saying, Andrew, that's too good to be true. There's no way that there's a private pension plan that can give me 8% up front, a guaranteed 7%, no market risk, and it's guaranteed. There's no way. Call SWAN-Capital. What do you have to lose? Call at 380-9558. That's 380-9558. Now, if you're getting close to the retirement red zone and you're trying to figure out how do you have enough retirement income, because when you retire and you go from making $5,000 to just living off your pension check of $2,000 or $3,000, where does the $1,000 to $2,000 come from? Well, they have to come from somewhere. And hopefully you have the investments to support that income. What we do at the retirement checkup that I encourage you to call our office about is we look at all your incomes. We take a look at your Social Security check, your pension when you turn 65 or 62. And then we compare it to your expenses, what you plan on paying in retirement. And then we compare the two. And if you're negative $1,000 or $2,000, we figure a plan where we can guarantee that income for the rest of your life. And then the portion that we don't need for income, that's money that you get a permission slip to go invest it in the market if you want to. That you can take risk with that money. You can bet it on gold if you like. But you need to make sure that a portion, a foundation, is invested in something like the private pension plan that we were discussing that guarantees you an income check that you can never outlive. So if you want to find out more about that retirement checkup, give our office a call at 380-9558. That's 380-9558. And I want to highlight a study that was done by Bankers Life in 2011. It really shows the worries that you're not alone. It shows that literally 80% of retirees have worries that there's going to be health care expenses that are not covered. They're also worried about inflation. They're worried about becoming ill. And they're also worried about running out of money. And with the private pension plan, we can solve some of those things, like inflation. Your worries about inflation. We can help you solve about what happens if you become ill. What happens when your retirement check isn't enough when you go into assisted living. We'll talk about how that private pension plan can double your income for 5 years. So if you want to find out more information, check out SWAN-Capital.com. But before What Your Money Would Say is over, I want to share with you a few community events. And the first event is going to be our Veteran Aid and Attendance Workshop, which is at the Sterling House at University Parkway. And it's on the 24th of February. And at 6 o'clock, we're going to talk about a way where you can receive up to $2,085 a month tax-free to help pay for assisted living expenses for you or your spouse or for an elder parent. Home health care expenses if your parents need home health care in their home, or nursing home expenses for a loved one. So again, at Sterling House on the 24th at 6 o'clock, we're having a Veteran Aid and Attendance Workshop where families can learn how to receive up to $25,000 a year from the VA to help offset assisted living expenses, nursing home expenses, and home health care expenses. Also, let's say you live across the bridge. You live in Gulf Breeze. Well, we have a location and a time just for you. At the Blake in Gulf Breeze, a really nice assisted living out there in Gulf Breeze, we have an event on the 17th. That's right, the 17th at 6 o'clock, where we're going to teach families about the Veteran Aid and Attendance Workshop. And you can find out more information about our workshops at swan-capital.com. That's swan-capital.com. And we appreciate you tuning in to What Your Money Would Say. And we will look forward to seeing you next